So today, Lisa, we were talking a little earlier about how some people find themselves kind of luckier than other people with their career. So I thought it would be a good idea just to explore that topic of kind of luck and maybe what that is and how that maybe pans out. So you have any thoughts on that?
Well, what's the luckiest thing that's happened to you in your career? I mean, just flat out, straight out luck.
Um, Honestly, being in the right place at the right time, in front of the right person, and having the right response. So I think I look at luck as kind of, you make your own. Because there's nothing I've ever found in my career that I didn't work for before. So everything I did before kind of led up to the point of whenever an opportunity kind of hit itself and I found myself, all the stars aligning,
Yeah.
it turned into an opportunity.
Yeah, I have a hard time with the word luck because I think it discredits the amount of effort that goes into a process, whether the effort is obvious or subtle. It's kind of like the person who wins a prize who says that they're lucky. And to an extent, maybe they are lucky or they're experiencing some great fortune, but they probably did something that put them in the race to have that outcome. They made a purchase, they signed up for something, they attended an event. Something happened other than just, I don't know too many people who do nothing but sit at home with exposure to no one, who get a doorbell ring that some great luck has happened.
Precisely. And so like kind of luck, I use a model called planned happenstance in my coaching work. And it's really about happenstance is that like, hey, I happen to be at the right place at the right time, like the luck part, right? But the plan part is kind of making sure that you put yourself in more of those scenarios than not putting yourself in those scenarios.
Right.
And it's not like you can work a perfect plan to get where it is that you want to go all the time, because there is an element of kind of this chance encounter with somebody you met at the grocery store who knew somebody or whatever. But still, if you didn't go to the grocery store, you wouldn't have met that person. So it's kind of more about awareness, being aware of yourself and being kind of present in the moment.
Well, and don't you think that authenticity is important too? I mean,
Yeah.
a number of the job seekers who we work with are behind the eight ball a little bit in terms of getting out there, being connected, being visible. And so they're finding they have this great sense of urgency to get in front of people so they can be found.
Mm-hmm.
But they're not necessarily putting themselves in situations that they would normally choose to be a part of, circulating with people that they would normally feel an affinity towards, and so there's this awkward separation of sorts. Whereas some of the individuals who have appeared to have greater luck in their job search have found a way to consistently, whether it's through a job search or through their own personal and professional habits while employed, just be in the circles in terms of the topics that interest them, the industries that use what they do, and the types of decision makers whose radar that they want to be on.
Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, and I mean, so it's really about when you start your job search. If you start it when you've lost your job,
Right.
you're at a. So if you and I start at the same race, but you're ahead of me in your start, you're probably going to have a better chance of winning, being quicker than I am. And so if you start that kind of developing your career or the process of thinking, where can I go next, and it happens to be after you're ousted from the place you're at, you're at a loss as opposed to the person who puts themselves in the scenario in front of their boss or becomes a leader on a team or takes the initiative to develop some skills before someone tells them to. Or, I mean, if you think about this, like I like the story about, the invention of the radio.
Yeah.
You ever heard of that?
No.
So, I mean, Edison invented the radio, right?
That I did know.
Okay, but really it wasn't Edison. It was a guy by the name of Nikola Tesla.
Oh.
He invented the radio. Edison beat him to the patent office.
So Edison's the one we know.
So Edison is the one we know. Edison's the one who got the credit, who got the money.
Mm-hmm.
But Tesla was the one who actually beat him to that.
That's an interesting story.
And so how often does that happen in our lives?
Well, and I try to use, for the people who may be wondering, how do I know if I'm setting myself up for good luck down the road? I think whether we're looking for a new career opportunity or in the mix of something that we really love and enjoy, it's always good to take a moment to ask ourselves if someone's tried to recruit us lately. Because people should be trying to recruit you. They should want you. They should want you to be a part of what they're doing. If you are inspiring them, if you are positioning yourself as a thought leader on the front lines of something spectacular, as someone who's capable of connecting other people perhaps, or solving a problem. And recruitment can be subtle. It's not just that phone call from a headhunter that says, hey, I'm working with a client who's doing this, but it could even be the interaction of, well, you should have coffee with us sometime so we can tell you what's going on at our company. Or, so, what might persuade you to look at maybe alternative things? I know even as a volunteer in the community, I often had individuals float things in front of me to consider. And even though I wasn't looking at the time, that's how I knew. I was doing something meaningful, I was on people's radar, and I was probably keeping my skills up to the point that people saw me as an asset. Yeah.
Well, you said something key about being a problem solver. So I think it goes back to that, be the solution. You know, instead of part of the problem, be part of the solution. So what does any employer need? They need to make more money, they need to be more efficient, they need to be more productive, whatever it is that they're trying to go after.
Yeah.
And so in any occupation, there are some people who present themselves as more productive or present themselves as more efficient or whatever it happens to be. It's like the invention of the radio. I mean, both of them had the same idea, the product was great, the market was ready to have it, but one of them was more known. One of them was more out there in the public.
One of them executed better.
And so it wasn't really just, so you can be the best employee, but if you're like hunkered down in your cubicle and doing your 9 to 5 and that's all you do, you know, you're going to be in trouble when it comes time to look for something else. So.
Well, it's interesting because with some of the individuals I've spoken with, there seems to be this expectation that everybody's job search process is going to go through a similar timeline and cycle. And so say I've been looking for work for 6 months and you come to find yourself looking for work and you get an opportunity in 2 weeks. Well, something's not fair about that. Something happened that some people don't like me, or maybe you had an in, somebody you must have pulled on a friendship line or something. Not really recognizing that, as you mentioned before, job searches aren't things that necessarily stop and start with your need for a new job, but perhaps what you were doing in the months and years leading up to you needing to initiate a job search made it so your time of having to look was much shorter than me, or was in the zone and not really on people's radar and not building connections or developing my skills.
Yep, and that makes me think of when people come to me with their resume, for help with their resume, what I want to try to do is talk to them about living their resume instead of writing their resume.
Oh, yeah.
So if you're living your resume, people will see it. It's just an authentic, natural kind of outflow of your skills, your talents, your interests. The person that you are, as opposed to, okay, I sat down for an hour and wrote these things down.
Yeah.
If you're living it, other people will see it, they'll connect to it. You know, you become that living document.
They have to experience you. I mean, I'm trying to think of something in my life that I've acted upon exclusively because of a piece of paper. I mean, I can't even say that I read 5% of the mail that comes to me anymore. I just can't say that I honestly do. And so, so do we think we're going to get lucky in a job search by simply leading with a piece of paper, by not knowing anybody, by not leaving our house because we're waiting until we have another job before we circulate amongst other people? Yeah, I would say probably not.
Well, I use this metaphor a lot. Luck is for the lottery.
Yep.
You know, sure, you can go buy 20 lottery tickets. The odds are that you're probably not going to win. Right. Or you're going to win very little. And so if that's how you're conducting your job search, you just sent this piece of paper and it is a lottery. You're 1 in 400 resumes.
And while you've been going through all that effort, buying weekly lottery tickets for a number of years and spending X amount of money, somebody else has already made more than you were hoping for in your daily scratch off or whatever by simply positioning themselves to find another revenue stream
Right.
in a more logical way.
Yeah, instead of buying lottery tickets, they're investing in their 401k. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's like they're investing in themselves. They're doing something instead of waiting for somebody else to hand them something.
Right.
And also, I mean, you said a point earlier that made me think like nothing great has ever happened in isolation.
Yeah.
Like none of us are capable of doing this stuff alone.
Yeah.
And so when you're putting yourself out there, to be the star player, you really need to be a part of the team. So it makes no difference how good you are inside of the work you're doing if it's all about look at me, look at me, look at me, look at me, and it's all about this kind of arrogance. So if you're being the solution,
Mm-hmm.
you're actually bringing in other people to this, and that draws people in.
Mm-hmm.
If it's not just all about you, and I think too many people think about only themselves. What's this next thing going to do for me to get the opportunity? Well, you develop a skill that's on the forefront of what you see your company is going to need, well, you just set yourself up for an opportunity.
Right.
As opposed to you developing a skill because you want to get out of that place or something like that.
Right.
You know? It's a very different thing. I'm not saying because you want to get out of the place you want to develop a skill, that's not a bad thing. But if you can kind of sell the skill back to your company, it's a win-win for everybody.
Yeah. And I would say too that we can't expect people to know about us, get excited about us, want to create opportunity for us by relying on habits or methods that we ourselves wouldn't even respond to if we were the one being enticed as a buyer. So luck, I don't know, not so much really.
I think you play in your happenstance.
Mhm.